Hey, we're going a little bit early because I'm excited and I'm early. I want to get this one out. This is a very special analysis. We are 8 months in to these Bitcoin ETF thingies. And the question I ask myself is, what impact have they had on the price? How correlated are flows to the price? At the very beginning, they were very correlated to the tune of about 67%. I wonder what that is now. And what else is affecting the Bitcoin price? Where are we? And who do we depend on? Let's jump into the trends. And again, this will be a little bit of deep analysis, but it's fun. I'll make it fun, I promise. And thank you to the mods in the chat. Let's go. Not financial advice. And shout out to Moto89. I've been watching you in the comments for ages on YouTube. Thank you for joining Patreon. And I remember every name and I watch every name. Nick M., good to see you up there in Canada. Now, I shared this exactly a month ago on this Bitcoin daily video. It's too funny. Waking up to $58,000 Bitcoin for the 100th time. And I understand. Shout out to Big Ed. That's his name, apparently. Yeah, I understand it's frustrating, but it's also funny. And yesterday we had a wick from hell. Bitcoin's up $1,600 on the bottom yesterday. It fell to like 56.5, if I'm not mistaken, and bounced right back up. So here we are. Let's get into the money flow analysis. I do this, crunches a lot of numbers, but I do it once every, I think it's every 3 months or so, but I think it's interesting. So here we go. Eye chart number 1. This is the ETF flow and the T+1 price change in percentage terms. The numbers are in millions of dollars. So the blue lines are all the inflows of the ETF since inception. The red lines are the percentage changes in price. And what's really interesting about this is sometimes we had some really interesting dips, both outflows out of ETFs and very little impact on price. Sometimes we had big inflows into ETFs and very little impact on price. And then sometimes we had events like Germany selling, scared the crap out of Bitcoin holders. And we had the monster carry trade reversal that wicked us right down. Again, there are things that happen on the macro side of the world that do impact Bitcoin price. And the question is, how much do the ETF flows impact it? And we'll jump into that. Another thing that I'm always very interested in is the correlation of how much the actual Bitcoin move is driven by the ETFs. And here, basically, it's a scatter chart of every single correlation of every single event. And again, at the beginning, the correlation was much higher. So if money went into the ETF, price went up. But as of the last 30 to 50 days, that's fallen a lot. I think it was about 0.67 at the beginning. And what's interesting now, too, is you can see in the bottom left quadrant, 43 times the actual inflows have been positive and the price of Bitcoin has gone negative. And 14.2% of the price action can be explained by the ETF flows. Again, it used to be 67%. Now it's only 14.2%. Something has changed. Long-term holders sold, Germany sold, Genesis sold, Grayscale sold, the 5Gs as I call them. US government moved some around. Then we had Mt. Gox. That has all interrupted this correlation. But the impact of the ETFs is staggeringly large. Let's talk about them for a second. 8 months in, these are statistics. $16.734 billion has flowed in net to these ETFs. That's an average of $103.3 million a day. The worst day we had was minus $563 million out. The biggest day in, $1.045 billion. And we have 162 days in the bag, everybody. And that's where we are. Now, what I want to do is try to figure out, okay, mathematically, because I've been talking about my I multiplier for years, how does that correspond to this? So first of all, the total inflow is 103.3 million times 162 days is 16.734 billion. Price change. Bitcoin has gone up from $43,500 to $57,708. By the way, that was my calculation about half an hour ago, and it's already gone up to $300, $400. So now it's $58,100. But anyway, let's just call it $14,000 is the price change, the impact of By the way, it's interesting because 42K before the Bitcoin ETFs was my halving price target. That's how precise that was. Didn't take into account the ETFs. The ETFs technically, as far as I'm concerned and my models are concerned, have lifted the price over $14,000. So that's the 0.142 multiplied by the 16.734 billion is about 2.376 billion impact. But let's get into my multiplier. This is the interesting part. Since 2021, I've been talking about my 21x multiplier, which I backed into from the Tesla Bitcoin purchase, the impact of a $1.5 billion spend. By the way, Michael Saylor, someone now, is issuing stock to buy $2 billion in Bitcoin. It's a great time to buy, and I know he's chomping at the bit right now. We'll talk about that in a minute too. But the ETF multiplier, Bitcoin market cap, January 11th, $884 billion. Bitcoin market cap now, September 4th, 1.14 billion. It's probably 1.142 billion at this stage because the price has just gone up. And the increase in market cap is 256 billion. So if you take the market cap increase divided by the ETF inflow, you get a multiplier on the market cap of 15.3. It's not 21, but remember, we're just talking about the ETFs. Let's look at the IA multiplier of the price. If we assumed 21, the price of Bitcoin should technically be at 66,428. We are under that. The ROI using my old multiplier from 2021 will be 14.53% up from here. But that didn't happen. The correct multiplier now is now 15.3, just on the ETFs alone. Their money, not anybody else who's buying, not the Michael Saylors, not the Tethers, not the Mr. 100s, just these. If you plug in the 15.3 multiplier from the ETF money flow of $16.734 billion, we get a price based on 15.3 of $59,069, which is basically $900 away from where we are right now. So that is the money flow for the ETFs. So now we know if Larry Fink comes in and buys $1 billion, or if the money flow is X percentage per month or per week or per year, we have a pretty good handle on the impact on Bitcoin price. But again, we've been through the 5Gs. If those 5Gs didn't happen, the price would be a lot higher. And that is the math. And we'll continue to monitor this as we go forward. And shout out to Econometrics too. They mapped out a linear model. And basically, the conclusion is net positive ETF inflows are good for Bitcoin price. And since the ETF launch, we've observed a positive correlation between the Bitcoin monthly returns and the net flows for the ETFs over the same period. Roughly, the painting with a very broad brush here, for every 10,000 Bitcoin captured by the ETFs, it boosts the Bitcoin price by about 4%. So think 10,000 Bitcoin, 4% increase in price. But let's talk about something that's kind of stunning as well. If it was not for BlackRock, these puppies would be red. The numbers that I calculate every single day for 163 days now, Grayscale Bitcoin Trust and their mini Bitcoin Trust have bled $19.56 billion. Okay? If it wasn't for BlackRock buying $20.8 billion, we would be red. That means Fidelity, Bitwise, ARK, etc. were not big enough to absorb the dumpage from Grayscale. Grayscale has been a horrible skunk, horrible bleed out, but thank goodness for our friend, the Finkster. Thank you, Larry Fink. Because, again, it would have been garbage. Terrible disaster if it wasn't for BlackRock buying so much. And of course, it's not people say, when I say BlackRock buying so much, it's the people that BlackRock represent, the high net worth individuals, the pension funds, etc. They're the ones buying this stuff. So anyway, that's the story. And remember as well, we've only had one negative month on the ETFs, and that was April. April sucked. 6,074 Bitcoin out. Shout out to Huddle 15 Capital. And August was slightly positive, about 1,000 in. But still, I do expect things to get a little bit better into the rest of the year. So that is the money flow analysis. So it's not 21, it's 15.3 just for the 9 ETFs. And that doesn't take into account the money flow from other players. So we'll update it, and hopefully we don't have another 5Gs coming our way that will dump their bags on the market, on the price, because that does have an impact. I want to introduce this too. We launched this 2 days ago. Over 5,000 people have completed it. It's a free investor profiler. Nothing like this has ever been done before in the history of the world. And I was inspired to build this out years and years ago by a guy called Ray Dalio, because he said its most important thing in investing is know your blind spots. So this is the IA Investor Profiler. It took us 3.5 years to build this. It took me 25, 30 years of thinking about it. And you can discover your personality, who you match up against, legends like Buffett or Lynch or others, Kathy Wood, and your strengths, your weaknesses, and your blind spots. So again, enjoy it. It's very, very important to know what you're good at and what you're not good at, and then shore up those weaknesses. Let's get into the Bitcoin black hole before we get into the news and the charts. It's a big one today because a lot to cover. First of all, forget that piece, but Bitcoin ETFs are losing steam at day 162. I added a big red line here to show you the big dip. We had 5 nasty, nasty red days running into the end of August and early September so far. Yesterday alarmed me a bit when I saw that nearly 600 million was flowing out of these ETFs. And I was worried it would have an impact on price, and it did. Bitcoin dipped, but I don't know if it's because of market maker manipulation to feed the bags. But 5,000 Bitcoin hit the market yesterday out of the ETFs. And that is I think the 5th or 6th biggest dump ever since inception. Most importantly, if you look at these two charts, the red line is the cumulative money flow. It's going down. That is not good. We have cycles when it goes up and down, but really looks like they're losing steam right now. And that part of that might be because of the August, the summer doldrums, etc., nervousness about the macro. But once rates get cut, once money printing happens, we should be getting into stronger months as we go forward, I do believe. And the 5 nasty days, nearly $800 million left the system in just 5 days, which is kind of scary. But anyway, those things are volatile. And you can see here, you don't need that one. Most importantly, though, the Bitcoin ETFs still hold 928,000 Bitcoin, which is 4.7% of supply. And we should have a little party when they hit 1 million Bitcoin. Or not, because the Bitcoin maxis don't like the ETFs having so much power. And remember, I always maintain they'll never be more than 15 million Bitcoin. So if they do hit 1 million Bitcoin, which I believe they will, probably in the next month or so, that means the ETFs will hold 1/15 of the supply. Bitcoin only players will be here. Let's get into some of the charts as well. First chart is fear and greed is still at 27. People are nervous. 25 is a nice place to buy. I think we should, if this was reflecting the attitude last night, it would have gone down to like 20 because it was pretty scary. And let's talk about the bull market corrections and where we are in terms of drawdowns. On average, Bitcoin investors are holding relatively small unrealized losses compared to prior cycles, which is favorable overall. However, short-term holder unrealized losses are a little bit elevated, indicating they are the primary cohort at risk. When people are underwater, they're more likely to sell because they can't take the pain. And you can see profit and loss taking activities remain remarkably light, but the critical metrics such as sell-side ratio allude to a potential for heightened volatility near term. The drawdown there you see right now, we're at about down 22.8% off the highs. We did hit as high as over 33%, I think, with that carry trade reversal. And the downward pressure has increased a little bit. But again, price action has been stagnant. Investor sentiment is apathetic over the last 6 months. However, there are some things where everything is changing. We've gone through a lot of storms. The accumulation is still there from the ETFs. And retail will probably come back, but they don't really have that much money compared to 2020, 2021. So we'll see where we go from here. But this drawdown is typical. And this is, I forgot to mention, a bull market correction drawdown. We are still in the bull market. A lot of people think it's over. We're in the bear already. It's like, no, it's still halfway through. Now let's get into some Bitcoin news. Shout out to Michael Saylor. He reminds us we are all on Team Bitcoin. He posted this day. I thought it was very cute. And no violation of McDonald's trademarks there at all. And Japan, this could be a little tiny little tailwind. Japan will drop the maximum tax rate on Bitcoin and crypto gains from 55% to 20%. And this is a significant change in Japan's tax policy regarding cryptocurrencies. Currently, Japan's cryptocurrency profits as miscellaneous income with rates up to 55% for high net worth people. I think it's people who earn more than 200,000 Japanese yen from crypto activities. What's that? Knock off two zeros. $2,000 is not very much. Anyway, that's a little bit of good news there. Another good news too, we have the reason we talk politics is because it does impact the Bitcoin price. So go John Deaton, pro-Bitcoin candidate set to challenge the anti-crypto army in the state of Massachusetts. Shout out to anybody there in Massachusetts. If you're watching me, you probably like Bitcoin. Therefore, you probably like from Bitcoin Magazine here, the pro-Bitcoin candidate. John Deaton, he did win his primary, so he is now representing one side against the other side in the first ever Bitcoin election. This is a historic moment, ladies and gentlemen. It'll be exciting to see what happens. Fingers crossed. Fingers crossed. And Cantor maintains, I know, Bitcoin miners, it's been a bloodbath. I know. But Cantor Fitzgerald, I know they're Bitcoin bulls, but they still have a $23 target on CleanSpark. And that's a 2.64x from where it is now. So pretty impressive. Now, I don't have all the mining data in yet, but they're petering in. Three of four of the top miners have already reported their production for the month of August. Expected to go down a fraction for all of them because the hash rate has gone up. We hit an all-time high yesterday. CleanSpark hit 478 monthly production. And their hash is up to 22.6 exahash. And their efficiency is 22.7 joules per terahash. So they are lean and mean. And they've produced 4,600 Bitcoin so far this year. And they hold over 7,500 Bitcoin, which is big. In fact, when you break down the amount of HODL that they have, the actual value of their rigs and their real estate, it's pretty much equal to the market cap. So fascinating to look at. Thank you all for coming. Thank you, Silicon Valley Stoic and Sean Donnelly and T&D Tesla and K8 and the whole team that's here. Hope you enjoyed the show. That was the Money Flow Show. Good night, everybody.